Welcome to Consulteer Inc. and Interlink IQ. To conduct a document review utilizing the ventilation program under the SQF Module 11.1.6, first check if the document title matches the uploaded file name on the dashboard. In this instance, we do have the same titles as the ventilation program. Next, both must have the same document code. For this example, we do have 11.1.6P0. Since this is a template, we indicate the PCQI as the account initials. However, we can customize the code based on the company's initials. For the page number, we use the page XFY format. Ensure that it reflects the current page position and the total page number of the document. Then insert the company logo here, together with the company name, the company address, and enter the designated department. For the originated by section, it can be the food safety, quality assurance, or the quality control personnel of the company. The originator ensures the implementation of the quality management and document control system. Enter the name of the originator, affix the signature, input the position title, and the date originated. For the reviewed by section, it can be the personnel assigned in the Quality Management Department who reviews the drafted document or its revision for accuracy and implementation. Enter the name of the reviewer, affix the signature, input the position title, and the date reviewed. For the approved by section, it must be the person in the C-level management who has approval authority. Enter the name of the approver, affix the signature, input the position title, and the date approved. The revision date is the same as the date originated or drafted by the author. For the effective date, it is the date the document was signed and approved. The publication date is when the document is published for distribution and initiated personnel training. The implementation date is when the document is distributed and personnel training is completed. For the supersedes, put original for the initial issuance of the document. For any revisions, reflect the initial revision date before the current revision. Please be reminded that this section must be properly filled out to be compliant. Now we will focus on the components of the program. First is purpose. The purpose is the implementation of any certification standard or compliance with a regulatory requirement. For this program, it is for implementation with the SQF Module 11 Edition 9 for food manufacturing under Class 11.1.6. First, to implement SQF 11.1.6.1, adequate ventilation shall be provided in enclosed processing and food handling areas. Where appropriate, positive air pressure systems shall be installed to prevent airborne contamination. Second, to implement SQF 11.1.6.2, all ventilation equipment and devices in product storage and handling areas shall be adequately cleaned as per 11.2.5 to prevent unsanitary conditions. Third, to implement SQF 11.1.6.3, extractor fans and canopies shall be provided in areas where open cooking operations are carried out or a large amount of steam is generated. Capture velocities shall be sufficient to prevent condensation buildup and to evacuate all heat, fumes, and other aerosols to the exterior via an exhaust hood positioned over the cookers. And fourth, to implement SQF 11.1.6.3, fans and exhaust vents shall be insect-proofed and located so they do not pose a contamination risk and shall be kept clean. Second, scope. The scope of the program is based on the purpose and serves as a guide in defining and describing the layout of the procedure. It includes ventilation and positive air pressure. Third is policy. The policies are the rules set by the company as their implementation guide. First, adequate and proper ventilation is provided to prevent condensate buildup in cooking areas or other areas where heat or steam is applied, resulting in contamination due to condensate dripping onto the product or food contact surfaces. Second, fans and exhaust vents are insect-proofed and placed in locations that do not pose a contamination risk. Third, Positive air pressure is maintained in high-risk processing areas to prevent airborne contaminants from being drawn into the area. Fourth, poor ventilation can result in condensate buildup in cooking areas or other areas where heat or steam are applied and can result in contamination due to condensate dripping onto the product or food contact surfaces. And fifth, in high-risk processing areas, positive air pressure is maintained to prevent airborne contaminants from being drawn into the area. Fourth is procedure. The procedure is the step-by-step process and the actual implementation of the policy. Under procedure is ventilation. Provide adequate ventilation to cooker or washer steam and other equipment which produces heat. Design and construct the ventilation in enclosed food processing areas based on applicable legislation. Design and construct the ventilation in enclosed food processing areas such that condensation over food and surfaces of food contact equipment is prevented. Lastly, place screen on vents and exhausts to prevent ingress of flying insects. Next is positive air pressure. First, identify high-risk processing area. Second, provide and maintain positive air pressure in segregated rooms or areas where high-risk food processes are performed and which require a higher level of hygienic practice to prevent contamination by pathogenic organisms. Potential airborne contaminants can include particulates, bacteria, mold spores, viruses, water vapor, oil aerosols, and allergens. Third, consider factors such as room dimensions, potential contaminants, product risk, temperature, humidity, filtration, pressurization, sanitation methods, maintenance access, and employee comfort when designing the systems and equipment supplying clean, filtered air in high-risk areas. And fourth, design airflow to keep food and food contact surfaces clean and free from contaminants and ensure airflows from high-risk to low-risk areas. Under that, conduct risk assessment to determine the requirement for airflow, filter grades, and the minimum air changes per hour required to maintain air quality. The risk assessment will determine the amount of filtration required to minimize the contamination risk. Although specific requirements may vary at each site, high-risk food processing areas generally require a combination of pre-filters and final filters with MERV ratings of 16. Lastly, the preventive maintenance programs cover appropriate filtration and proper maintenance to the air supply source or equipment and clean or change filters at a frequency appropriate to the product and process. Any maintenance is done hygienically. Fifth is responsibility. The responsibility of the person is indicated. It covers what to perform to comply with the procedure or the policy. For the food safety team lead, the PCQI or the SQF practitioner, visually inspect areas for compliance with this policy. Oversee compliance of procedure. Ensure personnel is trained on this policy and procedures. Monitor and take corrective action to ensure compliance with this policy. Validate training and adherence to policy and procedure. Lastly, monitor and document nonconformance observation is also known as discrepancy using the corrective action, preventive action, or the CAPA report. The supervisors or department heads and team leaders are responsible to ensure and verify this policy and procedure is adhered to, and take corrective action to ensure compliance with this policy. For the maintenance, ensure compliance with ventilation standard requirements when designing and constructing ventilation equipment and installing appropriate positive air pressure. Also, performs preventive maintenance of ventilation or positive air pressure system. Sixth, corrective action. The corrective action is the process of taking appropriate steps to eliminate causes of nonconformities or other undesirable situations. First, Train all personnel on this policy and reference SSOPs. Non-compliance will require retraining or dismissal from job duties or termination of employment. When condensates build up in cooking areas or other areas where heat or steam is applied, check for the adequacy of ventilation in the area. Install appropriate equipment to ensure proper ventilation. Also, if contaminated air is sucked into a high-risk area, check for the effectiveness of the positive air system. 7th, review quality. The review section serves as guidelines for conducting the annual or periodic review. Annual review of compliance to ventilation requirements by observing the following. Food processing areas have adequate ventilation. Cooking areas are adequately exhausted. There is no condensation present over product or food contact surfaces in cooker areas. Exhaust vents are adequately fly-proofed. Positive air pressure exists in high-risk processing areas. Exhaust fans and compressors are cleaned. Lastly, the condition of compressor filters. 8th is reference documents. The reference documents are the set of documents used to implement and monitor a program, policy, or procedure. It includes air filter register and monthly inspection form, the preventive maintenance schedule, product microbiological results, relative humidity record, positive air pressure record, and the preventive maintenance checklist. 9th, references. The reference section is composed of guides utilized to implement the program. Examples are the certification guide, regulations, and other widely accepted scientific journals, research, and the like. It must comply with the standard format citation, which can be based on either MLA, APA, or Chicago style, and update the access date. Lastly, history. The history section is where we can update the program if there are any changes or revisions made in the document. If there is a revision, enter the revision number, followed by the revision date, the description of the change made, then the name of the author or the originator, and the title or department of the author or the originator. Thank you for participating in this document review. Content presented are for training purposes only and are based on the interpretation of standards and best practices and must be customized for your intended use. To fully customize your programs, policies, procedures, forms for records, and lessons for training, you may contact Interlink IQ or Consultier Inc. at services@interlinkiq.com or simply call 202-982-3002. For free access, visit interlinkiq.com.